Freaks and Geeks is the 6th episode of the 12th season of CSI, and this is brilliant. But so far, out of the 6 that I've seen, this is the one that I found myself turning away from the most, because I'm very squeamish with this kind of thing. I'm not squeamish with a lot of things, but with this, absolutely. So there won't be spoilers for who was responsible for the murder, but there might be a few details I share in this that you might not want to know about if you haven't seen it, but I'm not going to spoil anything with regards to solving the mystery. And they find a body of a woman with needles in her arms, and I don't mean needles as in shooting up needles, I mean they looked like acupuncture needles to me, but they're actually threaded through her skin. And it made me feel sick. It reminded me of that thing people would do at school, where they'd put the sewing needles through their skin, and I can't deal with it. It's one of the very few things I'm squeamish about. And thankfully, once we kind of get over the initial reveal of that, we don't have that many close-ups of that, but there are a couple of other occasions where we get to see that sort of thing, and it did make me feel rather sick. Give me a ripped open torso on a pathology lab table, I can deal with that, but there's something about sticking needles through the skin and back out again just makes me feel disgusted. So it's difficult to deal with, but obviously it's very, very well done. And the title, Freaks and Geeks, taught me something, actually, because this woman somehow has this connection to this travelling show, this travelling performance. And I won't say what her connection is, whether she's part of it or was kidnapped or anything like that. I won't spoil that part of it, because I didn't know. I couldn't work that bit out until it was revealed. But that means that we meet some interesting characters, some of whom are, as they call them, freaks, people with congenital defects and other biological aspects that make them able to do things that the rest of us can't. The geeks, and this is the bit that I learned about, I'd never heard the term in this context, but apparently geeks refer to, the name refers to people who are performing, but they don't have that ability built in. They don't have a congenital defect, or they haven't got some syndrome that means they can do things with their body that the rest of us can't. So they need a little help medically, if you like. And I didn't know that. I never heard that term before, and I found that to be really interesting. We do get to see some of the performers doing some things that made me feel a little squeamish and not very pleasant, but it's very well done. And I have kind of a fear of, it's not a circus, but I have a fear of circuses and, by extension, sideshows and things like that. I would never go to this kind of thing in real life. When we have acts like this on Britain's Got Talent, I can't watch them. So you can imagine how heightened that is when we have it within a crime drama. It's very well done, but very difficult to watch. And I'm looking forward to going back to the knife wounds and gunshots, because they're just so much easier to deal with. But I really thoroughly enjoyed it as a narrative. I thought it was very different. We certainly get some very well-written, fascinating characters. To be honest, the whodunit part of it wasn't actually as interesting as the rest of it. I wasn't really finding that we were going down a tangled web. With the previous grand total of 5 CSI episodes that I've watched, there have been things where things were very unpredictable and we'd be thrown down a different path, and there would be something, not always a twist, but certainly things that were not expected. Whereas this one, it felt a little bit more steady, but it was just more about the characters. It's a more character-driven narrative than it is driven by the mystery. But the mystery is, of course, still there, and I was still keen to find out who was responsible. But that definitely, in my opinion, actually took a back seat, and that's quite unusual for a crime drama. But it worked very well. It's not an episode I could watch over and over again. I found it very entertaining in the right ways, and definitely educational in some parts, and very, very well done. But almost too much for me to handle when it comes to needles and skin. It's not pleasant, and I can't deal with it. But I could get through the episode, and it is ultimately very well done. Freaks and Geeks is quite a different episode, and despite my squeamishness at the needles and skin, it's still one that I enjoyed.